Matthew, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to get to spend time with you today and talk about your new book. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's great to meet you, and I'm looking forward to this.
I am too. It's fun to get to talk to Tennessee people in Tennessee. This is, I think, the third recording I've done in our new house, and we were just talking about how beautiful it is this fall, and I'm just loving, I'm looking at my window at the prime leaf season, and so we got to chat about that before we hit record, how much we're enjoying Tennessee in the fall. It's just been the best. So
yeah, it is awesome. I think it's a sweet relief from the Tennessee summer heat, you know.
Yes.
But I am especially excited for today's episode because I've done some interviews prior to this one today, and the interviews before yours had the bad fate of a leaf blower happening right outside my studio door. And then after that, it was a weed whacker. No, actually, so it would have been lawnmower followed by weed whacker followed by leaf blower, and there was no relief from that. So so the quietness that we're going to enjoy on my end is something that I'm really excited about, and I even put my dogs away. So
I love that.
I think we're good, unless my wife. Sometimes my wife lets the dogs out and doesn't know I'm doing a podcast interview. Then all of a sudden,
don't you love when that happens?
Yeah. So we're a really professional operation over here.
We are too. My husband is home for the day. He's off work today, and he is responsible for keeping the dog at bay as well, because typically I'm at home by myself and he's just roaming free. And invariably that is when the mail woman comes. It's when UPS drops off all the time. So,
yeah, everything. All the things happen.
All the things happen when you decide to record a podcast. It's the best.
This is true.
Well, I'm so excited to get to spend time with you today. You have a new book coming out that we get to talk about. There's so many things that I want to cover, so we have a lot of ground to cover, and I'm just excited to get to have this conversation.
Yeah.
Your new book is called The God Who Stays, and it really encourages readers just around this idea that God is always with us, right?
Yeah,
and I would love to just start by you encouraging listeners with that truth, right? How has that encouraged your heart? The fact that God stays, that he's always with us, how has that encouraged you in the last couple of years?
Well, it's like the subtitle of the book says, "Life looks different with him by your side." And it's really that, like, how prone we are to forget the power that resides within that promise of God's presence. And also the reminder that, you know, when God makes a promise, unlike the promises of the world that can go unfulfilled, God delivers on his promises 100% of the time. And so the coolest thing about it is most people, if they know my name at all, they would think of me as a musician, a songwriter, a recording artist. That's kind of how I've spent the last several years as a storyteller, telling my story in the form of 3-minute songs. And every now and then I'll finish writing a song, but I'll feel like there's more to unpack there. And so over the last several years, it's been a process of me getting the chance to flex different creative muscles and extend my storytelling beyond that song. And so the title of the book comes from a title of a song, The God Who Stays. And the lyrics say, "You're the God who stays. You're the one who runs in my direction when the whole world walks away." The first verse talks about how if I were you, I would have given up on me by now. I would have turned around and walked away. But somehow you don't see me like I do. Somehow you're still here. And so the song's written from this place of amazement, like, God, how have you not thrown up your hands and washed your hands of me and walked in the other direction? And it's just that's, to me, is the wonder and the amazement that God has never given up on me. I wanted to draw from that and really deepen the writing, go beyond the 3-minute song. And I wound up, turns out in my life, I needed that chapter by chapter reminder that God is with me always. And so that's what this book became. It's a chapter by chapter rediscovery for me. And for a new Christian, it might be a discovery for the first time of all the different ways that God stays faithful, patient, kind, and all the different phases of our lives, and how it might change how we walk through the world if we truly walk in that awareness that we are never without Emmanuel.
Oh, that's so good. Okay, do you want to know the thing about God, the thing about his character that has totally wrecked me over the last couple of years?
What's that?
Okay. I had never really thought about this as much as I have, I guess, during the pandemic, probably because about a year before that, I got married. I moved 9 hours away from everything I had ever known, became a pastor's wife, walked straight into a global pandemic.
Wow.
And so everything about my life was marked by change. Everything about every one of our lives was marked by change, right? But even prior to March of 2020, that was the case. And I just kept going back to scripture and thinking about that quality, that characteristic of God, that he is immutable, that he doesn't change. And I think in the midst of a life that was shifting and changing so much, the fact that I could stand on the fact that he does not change in the midst of a life that does gave me so much encouragement and comfort.
Yeah.
And then we take something else about him, right? Like his withness, the fact that he stays, or his sovereignty or his power, any of those things, and we lay that up against the fact that he doesn't change. That's why we can stand on that truth, right? Yeah. Because he's immutable, because he doesn't change. And so when I think about his withness, the fact that he stays with us, and I also can confidently say, yes, he doesn't change, that's what gives me that assurance. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I think one of the things I found myself doing, again, I'm a music maker, and it was, I didn't realize it while we were doing it, but as I was writing the book, I wound up looking back and realizing that in every single chapter, I wound up referencing an old hymn from my childhood, growing up in my parents' church. And like, why have those hymns stuck with me all these years later? And then I was revisiting just some of these powerful lyrics that remind us about the heart of God, the character of God, and the faithfulness of God. And on Christ the solid rock I stand. All other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. And just, so I really, to me, a preacher's kid who grew up in church, who learned how to look the part, who memorized all the right Bible verses, who has grown up to become a professional Christian with a public platform, there can become this monotony, this almost like it's what you do, but is it still who you are? Type of burning question deep down. And I think in the writing of this book, I had plenty of time during the pandemic to take some inventory of what kind of Christ follower I've become, and maybe if I've settled for something less than the closeness that God desires to have with me. Have I settled for sort of a socially distanced relationship with him? Have I gotten better at talking about Jesus than I have at talking with him? And,
wow.
And so this book was really a dive into that and rediscovering the faithfulness of God and then the grace of God. Like when you have these moments where you don't like who you're becoming, you can start to turn that into not liking you, right? And then discovering God's grace and his goodness and his gentleness to bring me back. And in many ways, this book wound up being a book that brought me back chapter by chapter.
I love that. Hey friends, quick break in this conversation to remind you of something. If you are loving the show, you're loving the conversations we're having, it would mean the absolute world to me if you would leave a rating and a written review on Apple Podcasts for Radical Radiance. When that happens, when more of those happen, the show gets put in front of more women, and in turn, it allows them the opportunity to take part in conversations that will show them more about what it looks like to radiate the heart of Jesus. And I can't think of anything better than that. So it would mean the world to me if you would take just 2 minutes of your time and leave a rating and a written review. I'd love to hear what you think. Now, let's get back to the conversation. I'm picking up on something you're saying too that I think a lot of us experience if we write or we make music or we are a pastor's wife, pastor's kid, any of those places where our faith is a big part of what we quote unquote do. And you, in those seasons for you where you've had to say, okay, God, I'm straying away from being in your presence. I'm getting really good at talking about you, but not being with you. Like you said a minute ago, what do you do?
Well, I try to make a change.
Yeah.
You know, you have to, you can't continue in the same direction and hope to arrive at a different destination. You know what I mean? Yet I do that quite often.
Yeah, we all do.
Yeah, so I think for me, there needs to be intentionality towards margin. You know what I mean? Like, I just think a lot of times, like, I'm a slave to my schedule, and ironically, I'm the one who created the schedule, or I allowed it to get out of control. And so if I'm more focused or more intentional about scheduling time for me to do this, what I'm doing with you today, but I haven't been as intentional about doing this on a one-on-one level with God, then I'm missing the mark, right? So, and so, you know, literally, I'm preaching to myself in that, like, I don't have that figured out, you know what I mean? And so, but at the same time, that's where the beautiful discovery of God's grace. I mean, I've had nights when I'm on stage and I'm in the middle of a song and it'll just hit me like, I didn't read my Bible this morning, and I feel like, how did I get up on stage, like, expecting to have a full tank to minister to people, and right in the middle of singing this song with an audience in front of me, I can be having this crumbling, humbling, like, thought process on stage. And this is all going on with an audience having no idea, and me singing at the top of my lungs about God's grace. But even in that moment, I'm witnessing the witness of God, because guess who I start looking to in that moment? With total and complete dependency. Lord, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I got so busy this morning. And now here I am on stage telling people how wonderful it is to spend time with you. Lord, forgive me. I want to spend time with you too. In the middle of this song, somehow, some way. And in that middle of that song about grace, I realized that song's for me too, just like this book was for me. So, you know, those are just like little glimpses into the mental battle that you can have, the spiritual battle that you can have, and then the grace that you can discover when it just, all of it should be pointing you to a place of dependence and go, man, I can't make it without you, Lord. Thank you for reminding me of that.
Yes, that's so good. I heard somebody talk about something, and I'm curious to see if you have experienced this or you think there's some validity to this. I saw somebody post the other day about traveling to go to speak somewhere, and she admitted, she said, you know, I have stepped up on stages where, you know, I've had a devastating, you know, something happened in my family, or my travel plans didn't go at all as planned, and the day has just been nuts, and somehow I've got to step up on stage and teach. And she said, I can't help but think, after so many years of doing this, that God's sovereignty is in the details of what happens leading up to me standing on stage, and that somehow he uses the condition of my heart when I step up on stage in order to minister to who's there. And I don't know how that works out theologically, but I can't help but believe that somehow the sovereignty of God and what my week looks like leading up to an event or standing on stage somehow meshes together into what God intended for the audience. Have you seen that to be true?
Absolutely. I mean, I think when you're up in front of an audience, at best, you might get a small glimpse of how God is working through you. You might hear a story afterwards or whatever. You know, we won't know until eternity how maybe somebody's listening to this podcast and somehow it impacted their relationship with the Lord. But, you know, I think the way that works out theologically, what you're saying is, it's like, you know, when I open my Bible, I'm reminded of a God who works all things for good, who wastes nothing, who is involved in the most finite details of our lives, and who is working in all things to remind us that we can't make it through anything without him, right? So, with God, all things are possible. With man, this looks impossible. And so I mean, I do feel like it's, God can use anything. He wastes nothing. So if like for me, talking about getting on stage and feeling like I'm beating myself up because I didn't read my Bible, well, God can use that and speak through that and then I'm coming on stage in a posture of humility, not as somebody who's up there wanting to pontificate about how I've perfected the craft of Christianity. Instead, I'm coming from a posture of humility, saying, God, speak through me. I think the biggest thing that public speakers or like somebody with a microphone in front of them like this is like, you can just get fooled into thinking that your performance is going to determine the level of impact that God's going to have on any given night or any given interview. Like if I do a good enough job talking with you, Rebecca, then God is really going to be able to work in people's lives. And I've just noticed over and over again this awesome and beautiful lesson in humility. Sometimes the worst show I've done is the one where somebody will come and tell me like, oh man, like God moved in such a powerful way. And I'm like, I just kind of like smile to go, he does not need me. He chooses. He chooses me to call me his child, and then to tell me he has a plan and a purpose for me. And again, all of that points towards the God who stays faithful, the God who stays with us. One of the chapters in the book is called The God Who Stays with the Plan. And too many times we think that we're the ones who are going to thwart God's plan for our lives. And there's beauty in that reminder that like, hey, have you screwed up today? Well, guess what? God doesn't say his plan for you is null and void. He says, I know the plans I have for you. Not had, past tense, have, present tense. There's power in that present tense. And I love that. I love that reminder. Like, God, thank you. That like there's a song I wrote for a group called Cain. I wrote it with them, and the bridge says, on my best day, I'm a child of God. And on my worst day,
you helped them write that song?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that one.
It's a catchy little tune, but if you think about those lyrics, on my best day, that came from something I would say on stage. Like, hey, on my best day, I know that I'm a child of God. And on my worst day, guess who I am? I'm still a child of God. And guess what? God still has a plan for me. So, I want my songs and my books and anything that comes from the platform God's given me to be flooded with the message of God's grace and his patience with us, because I wouldn't be here without it.
Yeah. Amen. I would wonder, you've written several books. As you walk into a book project and you're taking this idea that you've already written a song about and you are sort of extrapolating it into a whole message, what's that process like, and how is it so altogether different than songwriting?
Well, I think the first thing is the chance to unpack the message of the song is an exciting prospect. And then, when you're writing a book, it can be extremely isolating, and songwriting can be very collaborative. Like even if I write a song by myself, when I'm in the studio, I'm bouncing ideas off of people. And so for my latest book, I had written my other books just all alone in a room and then sending it off to the editor. And I just was craving the same type of experience as my songwriting on this one. And so I called a friend of mine who's a gifted writer, and I said, hey, I've got this concept. I want to explore how to write a book where we're like we're writing a song, and we did that on Zoom throughout the pandemic, talking with each other. And it was a really, really special experience, unlike any other book I've written. But the biggest differences are just, I'm a storyteller with or without a guitar in my hands. And I've lived a lot of life, and I've had so many different incredible experiences where God's gotten my attention. And so I've had this desire to be able to share stories. Like, there's a story in the book about me me singing Jesus songs at a biker bar and back in college, and just the insanity that ensued that day, and how in the beginning of your career as a musician, you accept any invitation to perform, even if it puts your life in jeopardy. And so I love telling these stories that, like, I think laughter is important, and there's a lot of funny stories in the book. I took my daughter shark cage diving for her 13th birthday, her idea, not mine. And, I get to tell these stories of how God showed up and how I've seen his presence in my life. So I just get it. I'm so excited for people to flip through these pages, and it's been fun hearing from people, like, how it's been speaking to them, But yeah, there's similarities and differences, but you're drawing from different types of creativity when you're writing a song than when you're writing a book.
I love that. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, speaking of songwriting, we recently had Ann Wilson on the show to talk about My Jesus. Yeah. Oh man, she is just such a doll. I adored her.
She's the best.
And we talked about that day when you guys wrote My Jesus. You were a part of that write where that song came out. I would love to hear what's it been like to walk alongside her as her career has grown so fast and mentor her. What's that been like for you?
It's been incredible. I started my career behind the scenes as a songwriter for other artists. And for 4 years, I tried to get a record deal, and the record labels turned me down, but they told me I was a good songwriter. And so I started my career behind the scenes as a professional, songwriter. And my songs were recorded by other artists. And then 4 years later, I got a record deal of my own, and people said, well, now you can stop doing that because you're just going to make your own records. I said, no. I fell in love with the idea of being an everyday songwriter and being part of other artists' creative processes. And so I decided, who says I can't do both? And so I just kept doing both. And all these years later, I see why. And so, like, this week, I'm not bragging. I'm just saying, like, as an example, I have the #1 song on the radio this week. And I'm not the singer. And you know what? I'm just as excited about it because I love that song. Tasha Layton is her name. I'll give her a shout out. The song's called How Far, and it's #1 this week. And it's like, that is awesome. That's just, to me, what it shows me is like, God, forgive me if I ever draw boundaries around how you plan to use me.
Ooh, yeah.
So I think that's been a really cool story, being able to kind of have these two different careers over the years. But Ann Wilson, I got a phone call. Sam, would you write with I think she was 17 at the time.
Wow.
She's a young artist. We think she's got something. We know you're more established, but would you spend a few hours with her? And I'm like, sure, and so I remember getting together with her and hearing her sing and hearing her story. And we just struck up a friendship. And there's something about, because I'm an artist myself, I just have a real heart for young artists. Yeah. And I really want to help mentor and speak into young artists who specifically want to tell the world about Jesus through their music, because I'm really proud of the genre of Christian music. And she's one of those artists who just like unapologetic. She's lived a lot of life. She's experienced some deep tragedy and grief in her life, and she's come through it, and she knows she's on a mission, and she never forgets. And so it's been really fun. We sit down and we write that song, My Jesus. She goes on and has her first #1 song as an artist, and now things are just taking off like a rocket ship, and the Lord's just using her in such a powerful way. So it's fun, man. Those are neat stories where I'm like, all those years ago, if I would have listened to people who said, no, you can't do both, look what I would have missed out on, you know? And so, man, it's just that's a great reminder of like, man, what voices are you letting yourself listen to? You know what I mean?
So
like,
good.
And in Nashville's filled with people that I call dream crushers.
I'm sure.
They feel like it's their responsibility to tell you what you can't do. And I'm like, man, that's why, like, when I'm writing songs, like, no dream crushers are allowed. That's a sacred space.
I love that.
And so I encourage anybody who's listening to this, like, maybe you could think of some dream crushers in your life, man. Don't give them a seat at the table.
That's right.
In your mind. And
that's right.
Or if you do, like, I mean, I'm wired in the way that, like, I like it when someone tells me what can't be done. I tell them, like, go ahead and build a ceiling over me, because you're just going to give me something to break through.
Yes, I love that. And I told Ann, I said, you don't know how many conversations I have where it's the opposite story of what happened to her, right? Like somebody has dreamed of doing music professionally for 25 years, or they've dreamed of becoming an author, and you get to hear their story of working up to that or whatever. And with her, it's almost like God has wired her just with this sweet spirit and incredible character, and he just has his hand on her, and it was his plan that happened really fast for her, you know, and that's not normal.
No, it's not. I mean, like, she hasn't, to your point, like her dream wasn't like she wanted to be an astronaut. Not,
yes,
you know,
we talked about that.
It's almost like, it's so funny too, because like we're at these award shows and she's winning these big awards, and she is like not, you know, I'm going, are you soaking this up? And she's like, what time can I leave the after party? You know, it's like, it's so sweet. Like, it's just not, she's not enamored by it. And that's not why she's doing it. So that's important. And she's going to be doing, I mean, she's got some really incredible things happening right now. And it's just fun to be friends and to help, you know, be able to speak into somebody's life at the beginning of their career like that.
Yeah, that's incredible. I love it. Well, another part of what you're doing these days is podcasting, which is so awesome. I love the Matthew West podcast. I wonder, what has it been like for you to step into that medium? And we've talked a lot about community in this episode, and like just how much we both value that in our work. And you're a part of the That Sounds Fun network. And so all of that, what's that experience been like, I guess is the best way to say it.
It's been a lot of fun. I mean, you know, normally I'm on this side of the microphone as a guest, you know, and for years that's been like the case where, you know, people are asking me questions and what do you think about this? And tell us about your songs and this, that, and the other. And I do love to tell those stories, and I love times like this. But doing the podcast has afforded me the chance to be on the other side of the microphone and for me to, you know, get curious about other people and to learn, you know, just from people who inspire me. And I feel like it's been an exciting thing. And, you know, just to communicate with audiences, I love the idea of, you know, us as believers and followers of Christ, of like, you know, occupying all different forms of entertainment and being there as a light where there's dark places. And so I think it's been fun, you know, the thought that somebody finds the podcast or clicks on an interview and gets encouraged by it. And my dad has a segment on the show called Dad Vice, and he gives a little devotion. And so I use it to take people deeper into the music too, which is a lot of fun. And but yeah, I really enjoyed that part of the process. I think I've done like 130 episodes or something already.
That's awesome.
It's crazy. It's a lot of work though.
It's a lot of work. It's a whole lot of work. Yeah. That's fun. I love that. Well, I am so excited about The God Who Stays. Right before we go, we'll talk about where listeners can grab it, where they can connect with you more. But there's one more question that we always ask every guest that comes on the show. The podcast is called Radical Radiance, with a heart to help women see what it looks like to radiate the heart of Christ in all that they do, which comes from this verse in Psalm 34. It's verse 5, and it says, "Those who look to him are radiant, and their faces shall never be ashamed." And so the question I love asking is, what about Jesus, at least today, makes you radiant?
Boy, that's a great question. I love the heartbeat of your show, and I know it's encouraging all your listeners every time you put one out, and I hope this one's the same. Gosh, you know, I guess I would just point to the thing that's happened most recently where, like, I was moved to tears, was a couple of weeks ago. My daughter came to me, and she's 16, and she said, "Dad, you know, my youth group's having baptism, and I think I want to get baptized." And I was like, "That's amazing." Like, that's just like, and she said, "I want you to do it," you know.
Oh, wow.
And so we went to this youth pastor's home, and there's about 100 kids in this backyard on a cool fall evening. And I got to baptize my daughter, Lulu. And
wow,
you know, I just, like, she's in this like hot tub thing, and I kneel over her, and I just start bawling, like just like a,
Yeah.
I mean, just no chance of me like controlling my emotions. And she's crying and I'm crying. And I think what I said, like the thing I remembered saying was like, your earthly father is so proud of you, but your heavenly father is so much more proud of you than you'll ever know. And I just remember like, I'll never forget that moment of, seeing my daughter make a public profession of her personal relationship with Jesus. That's the moment my parents prayed for me. It's the moment I've prayed for my daughters. And I mean, when I think of the word radiance and looking to God and being radiant, like I saw a radiance in her eyes, and I know she had to see it in mine, because in that moment, we were in the presence of God, and I know that he was pleased with my daughter's profession of her faith. So those are the moments, man. Like I'm so thankful. God is so good. And here I am, I've always been haunted in a good way by this thought that I don't want to be going all around the world singing my songs and writing my books and telling your listeners that he's the God who stays and getting that message out to everybody. But then the ones in my own home don't get that message, right? And so my prayer is for the ones in my family. And so when you see that light bulb go on in the head and the heart of your own kid, I mean, there's a radiance there that is pretty special.
That's incredible. And to think, as much as you delighted in that as her father, that is like a drop in the bucket at how much God delights in her.
That's the truth. That's
the truth. Yeah. That's the best. Oh, I love that story. That's so cool. Well, I am so excited about the God Who Stays. I would love for you to share with listeners, how can they connect with you? They can grab the book anywhere, but where can they find you?
thegodwhostays.com is a really cool resource website where I created a video tour guide chapter by chapter. So you can get the book wherever. Amazon is where most people get it. I recommend the audiobook personally, just because I had a lot of fun reading it. And, I did some singing on it and things like that.
Oh, that's awesome.
But when you get the book, you can then go to thegodwhostays.com and you can get access to a chapter by chapter video tour guide, a Bible study, some really cool resources there. So and then MatthewWest.com is the place to stay in touch with me for tour dates. Obviously, you can find me on Instagram and all those things as well. But MatthewWest.com for tour dates and merchandise and all those things.
Very cool. Awesome. Yeah. Well, I am so excited about it. I can't wait for our listeners to get their hands on it. And I just want to say, again, a huge thank you to you for coming on the show today. I'm so grateful.
Oh, I'm honored. Thank you, Rebecca. Keep up the good work. And thanks for letting me share about this book. I appreciate it.